Welcome back, everyone, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. We are thrilled to be joined by Rob McCoy, head coach at William and Mary. Rob, how's it going?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. The holidays are officially over. I think it's officially time to say that it's college baseball season. So I want to dive into, William and Mary. But before we do that, you spent 16 years at Niagara University. Is that right? As the head coach?
As the head coach, 18 total. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a long time. And I don't know if anyone over that time has recruited more Canadians than you. I know you're Oregon. You were born in Oregon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but no one made the trip over the border more than you, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I gotta give Matt Spatafor credit for that. I can't take credit for it. I supported it and I helped, but you know, I there were so many times where, he'd say, "Hey, I got a guy," because of his contacts there. So it really helps. I guess the lesson and all that would be to, you know, surround yourself with people that can help you get where you get to. And for me, that was him. Obviously he was born in Canada and um, played a high level of baseball there, so he had connections with coaches, and then he fostered him. He was the guy that would, he's calling Doug Matheson and Jamie Bonnet, and he's the one calling Les McTavish and the Mets and the Canadians, and like all the way across the country and back. So yes, we pulled the trigger on it. We thought we had a good niche for them. We could package them financially pretty well, which was important to Canadians. We're right across the border, so several times, and maybe I'm helping Matt here. But
We're gonna have him on actually in a couple of weeks, so you
yeah,
go.
no, that's good. You
I'll
know,
tell him you spoke highly of him.
yeah, good. Several times we had guys cross the border for healthcare. So it was a good fit, and we got into the right organizations with the right coaches and coaching staff, and it was a major help.
So as you mentioned, 18 years at Niagara. You made the transition this past June to William and Mary. Take me through that transition and what kind of prompted you to make that change in your career.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of surreal, really. I had last year had pretty much made up my mind between my career and my family situation with my wife and kids being there, and I have a stepson, so his dad was there, and the life of coaches, you're like, yeah, I would love to get another job and move on and up, and I just I knew we were creating something really special at Niagara, and it was right around the corner. So I was to a point where I was satisfied with it, and excited to move it forward. And then we have a great year, obviously the best in Niagara history. And you know, Spat and I came home and we were just running our normal tournaments on the field in the summer, and I get an email from a search firm, and it wasn't a normal email, I could tell. And I'd only applied for one job in 16 years at Niagara. I didn't apply for this one. And through conversations with the administration here and their philosophy and direction of the program and things like that, and then just the overall situation for me and my family, we just felt like it was now or never, and it was the right time. And this is a significant upgrade in terms of conference level play, geography, seeing my family, like we have 31 home games. Last year we had 40 away games at Niagara. So it all played into that, I guess. The and then the other part of that is, Spat earned an opportunity to be a head coach, and so it kind of worked out for all involved.
Yeah, so I want to touch on Matt in a minute, but you mentioned the lack of home games and playing in the Northeast. You won the conference last year, a huge accomplishment for Niagara. But how tough is that schedule for both players and coaches to be on the road for so long to begin the year?
It's incredibly tough. Like there are benefits to it. You gel as a team, you're forced to hang out and be together and do those kind of things. And but it's just incredibly tough. I think people just don't understand. They just don't get it how, it's you go down and We have a common start practice date. We have a common start play date. But what happens in between those is a big deal, and the wear and tear on the body and things like that. It's a big deal. But that's why you've got to get grinders. You've got to get guys that don't care. We had a saying, no BCD, no blame, complain, defend, no excuses, no nothing. That's gonna make us stronger. It's gonna make us better. And so you get to a point where, you're almost hoping to hit in the top of the first later in the season. But yeah, we turned it into a positive because I think anytime you have negatives, because there's negatives everywhere, man. It doesn't matter. It's just different negatives. And so you just turn it into a positive, and you get guys that don't care, and you get guys that have to be warriors of their own physical and mental health. And when you do that, I think it gives you a chance to have special seasons like that.
There's a lot of talk about Canadians having that mindset and being indoors so long in the winter time, and sometimes it can be seen almost as an excuse for development or a lack thereof in some cases. Do you find Canadians do have that mindset that you've recruited?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think certain organizations up there have that mindset. So you're looking to get in the right organizations and get the right minded people. That's with everything, right? Like if you're a CEO, there's definitely going to be other small level upstart companies where the CEO hires the same type of guy that you would hire or trains them the same way you would. So you go find them and they're your feeder for, the type of kid that you're looking for. And I wouldn't say it's easier to find Canadians that think that way, but I do think that the fall trips that they take and the things that have become popular in developing Canadian ball players, I do think those help, right? And they're coached by most of the time they're coached by ex-pros, and they're talking about, telling them like minor league stories, like you want to play in the minor leagues and you don't want to ride a bus, it's going to be pretty challenging. So I think to a certain extent, yeah, that is a that is a quality that you can find fairly easily up north for sure.
As a coach, as a college coach, you probably spend a lot of time indoors, focusing on development over the winter time at Niagara. You can't get outside. What is the
Mhm.
key to maximizing development when you're inside for so long?
Hmm. I think I would probably say make it as close to realistic as you can. Don't spend time doing eyewash stuff that isn't realistic. A perfect example would be, at Niagara, we have this multi-purpose gym floor, and it's nothing like anything. It's not turf, it's not grass, it's not like short Bermuda, it's nothing. So we stopped taking ground balls on it. We're like, this isn't helping. If anything, it's hurting. And so yeah, we just I think you just have to do the best you can. We started going when we go live inside, when the pitchers face the hitters, we try to make it as game-like as possible. We'll play walkout music for the hitters so that everyone gets the feel for the timing and things like that. But that's really the best you can do. Take advantage of the development because you can develop a swing better in a cage than you can on a field. So take advantage of the opportunities to develop the swing and make sure you're mechanically sound. And um, you've got different machines and you got different drills and different things that you can really do. But I mean, again, I'm not gonna lie, it is not as easy. One of the reasons why we had the year we had last year is because we got 8 inner squads outside before we went south. That's not a coincidence, man. Like it just is what it is. You practice outside. Every arm we have through outside. We went down and swept Richmond in the first weekend, and we were prepared. It was the first year in 18 years where I felt like our first game, we were prepared.
Yeah, and the reason I ask those questions is we have players, coaches, parents listening to this that, they want to be outside all year. They want to be in the Texas, the Floridas, those
Hmm.
kind of climates. But are there any advantages to being inside? Like you mentioned the swing. Are there
Hmm.
any things that you can really capitalize on that maybe you can't in other places?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do a lot of the same stuff. To your point, like I do think we lost kids over the years because of what you just said. And first of all, there's so much more to choosing a school and a level and a place to play than that. Like there's not going to be a lack of development. I can tell you that. There's not going to be anything that lacks. We can long toss inside. We can develop our throwing program that does that. You can do all that stuff. And then and then when you go south, you're playing outside and everything. So, I mean, we were inside probably 2.5 weeks. So everyone's like, yeah, you're inside all the time. No, we're actually not. You're at home on Christmas break when it's bad. So before you leave, we're still outside, barely indoors. And then you go on Christmas break for 6 weeks. We come back, we're 2.5, 3 weeks inside, and then we start playing south just like everyone else. So yeah, you might miss a couple days in between a midweek where weekend one and weekend two, but you're doing, you know what I mean? You're doing the same stuff. And secondly, that's not the time of the year you're developing anyway. Nobody's developing right before the season. You know what I mean? You're trying to get going. You're not changing anything or making some massive adjustment. So that's, first of all, it's a terrible reason to choose a school. There's a lot of good schools. And we showed it. We showed it after all these years that you can go to Niagara and you can be as successful as you want to be. Um, and two draft picks and a free agent signee, and there'll be two more, but they transferred after I left because they had other things to do. But there'll be two more drafted from last year's team, come this June or July or whatever. So I know that, and we've gotten that answer before, and I think it's not a great answer. I think that's a lack of understanding how a college season actually works.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's a huge talking point up here. You know it about finding the right fit and
Mhm.
not just chasing one aspect of an experience or another. But Matt Brash, who we've had on this show, had no problem at Niagara. He's doing just fine for himself.
Well, 100%.
So you took over at William and Mary from a Canadian, Mike McCray, someone you know probably pretty
Yeah,
well.
really well. Yeah.
Did you talk to him at all when you took the job or were thinking about it and get any input from him?
I didn't get input ahead of time because I didn't, I didn't really, whatever he was going to say wasn't going to change my mind or one way or the other. But we did talk after. I just saw him at the convention, in DC, the ABCA convention, and we chatted. But yeah, we talked over the fall. And again, him and he's a phenomenal coach, phenomenal recruiter, phenomenal coach. But him and I are completely different style. We have different styles. Um, and so, it's one of those scenarios where it's just, we've coexisted for a long time. He's a little bit fiery, which is good, and he does it well, and I'm not. I'm more laid back, and so but it's fun. We did compete for a long time against each other. It was funny because and I'll let the cat out of the bag now that neither one of us are there, but uh, we were rivals, Canisius Niagara, and then, you know, one day he was like, yeah, so I was gonna go out in the boat, but so and so, I didn't go out. I was like, I'll go out in the boat with you. And so he's like, no, you won't. And I was like, I'm gonna call your bluff. So one day he texts me, he's like, going out in the boat, you want to go? And I said, yep, let's go. So we go out and we fish the Niagara River for smallmouth, and that's just that, that's the kind of, I would bring him back from Diamond Nation. He'd fly down and hop a ride back because I didn't have the flying in the budget at Niagara apparently. So, but yeah, it was, I really like him, and he's really good at what he does. But we're two completely different people, so it wasn't going to really weigh on me either way about that.
Who caught more fish?
He taught me a lot of no shocker. I learned a lot from him over the years by getting beat. I'll tell you that for sure. But yeah, he taught me the weedless rig, where you cover the hook and then you bounce the bottom. And I was like, oh man, that's amazing. That's good stuff.
Yeah, Jackson, we're gonna have to remember to ask him about that. I'm not gonna remember what that's called, but you remember because he's coming on the show too in a few weeks, so we'll have to ask him about it.
Time now for a mound visit, courtesy of the Baseball Zone. Today, Coach Sean Schaefer discusses the common challenges that a high school hitter faces.
Understanding what their strength is at the plate. So, every player has a different profile. Some hit for power, some hit for average. And I think having them understand what they can do at the plate is their biggest asset. So, some smaller kids might not be able to hit home runs and doubles, so they need to understand that they got to hit the ball hard on a line drive. If you're a bigger player, maybe you're trying to elevate the ball a little bit more. So trying to figure out what their strengths and how that best plays to their game. That's their biggest asset as a hitter. And then I think the other thing from a hitting standpoint is swinging decisions. So a lot of hitters get a little bit anxious in the plate and they always want to swing, which is, it can be a good thought, but it's understanding what pitches that they handle the best. And then when those pitches, get into the zone, that's when you want to swing. So swing decisions are a big part of it.
This has been a mound visit courtesy of the Baseball Zone. Now back to the action.
So for prospective high school players, what does a fall look like at William and Mary, the fall ball season?
Yeah, so it's a little different here than at Niagara. So at Niagara, we had to start about 2 weeks into school, we would start team practice. And team practice usually goes for what is like 29 or 30 days. So there's 132 days in a season that you can practice, and you have to take all your spring days and subtract those, and then that's how many you have in the fall. So, and that's 20 hours a week, 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's team practice. So it comes out to about 29 or 30 days, and you have a 45-day window to get those days in. They have to be consecutive days, unless you break them up with a whole week of individuals, small group work, skill work. So up north, you've kind of got to jump in and just rip them out, right, and get them done so you don't run into any bad weather or you don't have any issues, because that's when you inter squad and you work on your team defense stuff, and you don't want anything. You don't want to push those days. Down here, we could push those a little bit. And so we didn't start team practice until October 1st, which was 2 to 3 weeks usually after we would have at Niagara. And so we did skill work before that. So we jumped in and did, I don't know, probably five weeks of small group skill work, which I like because it gets you players coming out of the summer. It gives you a chance to properly build up some pitch counts. It gives you a chance to get the swing back in the groove, those kind of things. And then you start that 30 days or whatever. And I do put a week of skill work into the fall, into the 45 days, because then it lengthens it out and it gives you a chance to catch your breath, because the fall can be very intense, if you will. So we ended the week before Thanksgiving, which was incredible, because I'd rather have the skill work on the front end and the team on the back end, and then you do your break stuff, then you evaluate, you make your roster decisions and you evaluate, and then they go off the break and then you jump back in. So that's what it looked like. The in season, the practice can be pretty intense, challenging. We're trying to get guys to compete, see what they're made of, those kind of cliche things, I guess you can say.
Roster size, how many guys on the roster in the fall?
We started with 48 this year. That's quite a bit, but I think whenever you turn over a coach, there's guys coming in, not necessarily guys going out. There's nobody there to make those decisions after the season. So we're down to 39 now. So down to 39. We feel like we did a decent job evaluating those guys and getting to 39, and then we'll play with that this year, and then we'll move even more next year, because we've got a lot of guys coming in, and at the end of the day, the goal is to get the best, whatever it is, 38 now, I guess we decided.
Yeah, 38, I think, is the latest I've heard. So I think it's important to mention that number, just because that is a lot of players. I don't know if high school players realize how many guys are competing for spots. So saying that, what does a guy have to do to catch, besides just skill level? Obviously, the high-end skill guys are going to catch your attention, but what does a guy have to do to catch Rob McCoy's attention?
Yeah, I think that could be different for everybody. I think the one thing, no, I don't think. I know the one thing that has separated us in the last 5 years is a clear set of core values. Um, we originally did it to help our team. So at Niagara, it was Eagles, excellence, accountability, grit, love, energy, and selfless. And at William Mary, it's tribe, trust, resilience, integrity, belief, and excellence. Um, and so that can be cliche if you just set those things and don't talk about them, but we talk about them every day. And so as a coach, when you talk about something every day and you look at those core values personified, then that makes it easier to go look for that. So you're basically looking for you know, guys that can trust and be trusted their teammates. You're looking for guys that can be resilient in all the adversity that baseball brings. You're looking for guys to do the right things on and off the field, in integrity, and you're looking for guys that have a belief in what they're doing and who they're playing for, and then you're looking for a guy that's excellent in what he does. He takes pride in it. He wears his uniform right. He runs hard 90s on ground balls to second base. So it makes it easier to identify the intangible stuff of what you're looking for because again, like the skill is a requisite. So even that can be even that can be, I guess, subjective because I want bigger, more offensive position players, and some guys might want smaller, faster, more skilled position players. So it's just a matter of what fits. But the biggest thing is, how do you play the game? Really, how do you present yourself? How do you talk? How do you speak when you're called? How do you How quickly do you submit your transcripts or fill out a questionnaire when asked? I mean, these are all things that aren't deal breakers, but they're indicators.
Absolutely. So now as guys start to trickle back in from the holiday break, I think we're 30 something days away from opening day for the Division One season. What's your outlook on this team heading in? Because this is a program that's been building over the last few years and been
Mhm.
getting better. So what's your outlook on the team heading into the 2025 season?
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I am. I think we're top heavy in a sense. So we have really good guys at the top, and then we've got some younger guys at the bottom that need some development. We lost two juniors to the draft. We lost two grad students to transfer. One of our best hitters got hurt, out for the season, and one of our best pitchers is out for the season. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging than what has happened in the past here. I think Mike did a great job getting the most out of his guys. Um, we've got some things that we're changing around a little bit. So I'm optimistic about what we can do, and the talent we have on the team. We have a lot of strong leadership on this team, and we'll see how it goes from there. But I'm excited to get going and see where we can make improvements if any here.
Yeah, I love when the schedules start trickling out. I get to dive through all of them and see who plays.
Yeah.
So you don't play Niagara. I thought maybe you'd try to sneak that on the schedule somewhere, but maybe down the road.
Well, it turns out that if it would have been that would have happened if I think we crossed paths like a month too late. Like we scheduled Kansas State. I posted it, scheduled Kansas State, and then Spat contacted me like a month later. It's like, you still got that weekend open because I got dropped by someone else, and I was like, oh man, no,
Well, yeah, that connection is going to stay there, I think. So
yeah.
maybe in years to come. So you do have one Canadian, Charlie Ariotakis. Tell me a little bit about him and kind of where's he at right now?
Yeah, he's in a good spot. You're talking about a guy who was, all projection, arms, legs, uh, and all this stuff. And truth be told, has not had, two very good years. I don't want to say that it's underachieving. I say he just, you know, just didn't the cards didn't fall his way necessarily. So he had a great summer. I think that was huge for his confidence. And then he comes in the fall, and one of the things that I tried to do being a new coach, and I would have done this taking over any program because it's what I do, is tried to breathe as much confidence in him as I could, let him know that we believed in him and his abilities and all that kind of stuff. And he worked his butt off, and he's one of the first to come to the yard and one of the last to leave. And he had a great fall. probably hit in the middle of our order come spring. He's been very measured. He's been very confident. I think he can remain that way. So yeah, I'm looking for big things out of him. We do a one-word chain at the end of every fall, which is everyone picks a word that has a meaning to them, and then we do the quick link this chain together, and that goes to the tribe player of the game. But I give it out to somebody after the fall, and he was he was one of the guys to actually share it. I've never shared it, given it to more than one guy, but he shared it with another guy. So that goes to show you what kind of fall he had.
So he's probably going to play somewhat of a role for you somewhere
I
this
think
season.
he's going to play a significant role. Yeah, he's going to play a lot of right field. He's going to play some first base, even though he hasn't yet. But his bat's going to be in the lineup.
As you mentioned, two not great years, his first 2 years. And I want to talk about the state of the NCAA a little bit, some of the things that have gone on over the last couple of years. But what do you hope that that shows other guys about stability and sticking it out in one place?
Yeah, that's the success story, right? That's the one where, that if you're allowed to, I mean, I gotta say that if you're allowed to, and you get the opportunity to remain on a roster not playing well, because that door goes both ways, right? Like some guys say, well, I'm not playing, so I'm out. And other guy, and then sometimes the coach says, well, you're not playing, so you're out. So, but I just think it shows you keep your head down. There's a reason why he was allowed to remain here and keep working hard because the previous staff had to see something in him. And so he believed in it. He believed in himself, kept working while he waited, and then had that breakthrough. So that can happen anywhere, right? Like that can happen with anyone. It's just a matter of, basically how a kid's raised or what kind of opportunities he's got and things like that. So I'm personally, I'm not anti-portal. I'm not the guy who's going to say, you need to sit behind a guy for 3 years out of principle just so you can, be a success story. I just think, you know what I mean? I just think every kid should do what they think's best for them. And my job, I think the portal forces us coaches to be better. Not, and I mean better, not nicer, better. Create an environment that kids want to be a part of, one that is bigger than themselves. I think every kid wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Every adult does too. And so you create that. It's not transactional. It's not something where it's like, oh, you're just another piece here or a piece there and you're not good enough and blah blah blah. I think whether you think a kid's got a chance or not, you should pour confidence into them and pour communication into them. And then at the end of the day, it's going to work out for some guys and some guys it's not. And that's no different than what we deal with in life, right? So like, somebody comes to a kid and tells them, hey, I got a better opportunity for you. Well, that's what happened with me. William and Mary came and said, I got a better opportunity for you. Okay, I'm out. See you later. It was a better opportunity for me. So how can we sit there and look at a kid and say, we're not going to let somebody take you out of and give you a better opportunity. So I think we had a ton of success at that at Niagara, and that's why guys wouldn't leave is because they knew that what we had going on was really special and the group of guys was really special. And that means way more to anybody at the end of the day than who's starting or who's backing up or whatever.
I think we went down the transfer portal hole, so we'll keep going. You see online, there's 3,000 kids in the portal and blah, blah, blah. There's not room for all of them. What are some of the misconceptions about why guys enter the portal? What are kind of the reasons for that?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. First of all, if there's 3,000 kids in the portal, there's 900 college baseball teams, right? There's not 300, there's 300 Division I teams, but there's 900. That's like 4 guys on each team. That's not that many, especially when a D1 team could start with 50 and had to go to 40 or whatever. So the thousand that they always say is not really that shocking if you think about how many per team it is, because every level, D1, D2, and D3 has to go in the portal. It's not just D1. And in fact, some NAIs, I don't know if the NAIs have to go in. I don't know how that works, but that would be even fewer. So that's the first misconception. The second misconception is these kids don't always get the choice to leave. They're being told to leave. So it's like, oh, we got 3,000 kids in the portal and they're all just jumping ship. So sometimes they're being told to leave. What do you want them to do? Stop playing baseball, and then sometimes they're being told that like some of the conversations I have are, listen, you can stay here, but you're just not going to play. There's not going to be an opportunity for you. And then the kid chooses to do what's best for the kid, right? Like, all right, then my dream has always been to play college baseball, so I want to go somewhere and play. That's fair. It's all fair. The amount of guys that go in the portal just simply because they're not loyal and they're trying to like better their situation is probably if that's if that's 100 kids, I would be shocked. So
Yeah,
what
but
is
that's the thought behind seeing so many kids in the bar. Again, you mentioned it's 3 or 4 kids per team, but I think the
yeah.
thought is that these guys are just not happy with their situation. It's a generational thing. They're just gonna, chase the next big thing.
Yeah. And to a certain extent that does happen, but that what's 103,000? What's do the math for me on that, right? Like let's say it was 303, that's 10%. So it's 3%. It's 3% of all kids, I would guess. And then you'll also have situations where, you have a coach or coaching staffs, and I'm not going to get into specifics on this, but like I said, it forces us to be better. Well, look around, and are there situations where there's 10, 12 guys leaving every year? And does that mean that maybe we need to do better there? Because kids get recruited and maybe it's not what they were told, you know? And so they're like, nope, this isn't what I was told, so I got to get out of here. So I'm telling you, the amount of kids that leave because they're not loyal and they're just trying to chase the money or something bigger, if it's 10%, I would be shocked.
How important is the portal from a recruiting perspective and filling out your roster each year? I'm
I
sure it
think
varies
it's
depending on where you are and the year.
yeah, for us at Niagara, it was a lot more important than here. I just think that, if I'm calling a spade, you don't grow up dreaming of playing at Niagara baseball. So we had to talk kids into why it was valuable to go there and what they would get there from there. And often happened that we needed to show that um, to kids that made decisions maybe for the wrong reasons. And then they're like, okay, now I understand what my priorities are. And so they found that in the important things that we felt were important at Niagara. So I think it was kind of like a live and learn type of deal. Here, it's not quite as important just because there's a different academic situation, there's a different social economic status situation that is at play. It's a state school, it's not a private school. And so there's a lot of factors that go into it. There's still transfer portal guys here, fair number of them, and we're still going to get them as long as we think that it'll make our team better.
Yeah. So as we kind of dive in more to the recruiting conversation, what's the difference between recruiting at William and Mary versus Niagara? You already mentioned a little bit about, the difference in schools, but what kind of have you noticed any big differences in your first year?
No major differences. No. From an evaluation standpoint, we're still looking for really talented kids. I don't think that changes. Um, but yeah, the academic standards, the guys that we can get in, there's no academic money here because everybody's really smart and so they don't give it to anybody. So all the money that a kid gets is strictly athletic, which can make things uh, it can make things challenging, but you just have to look for a kid in a different situation, basically. But it's been a little bit different from a geographical standpoint. Canadian recruiting is significantly harder because you're talking about you could give a kid a great, great, great scholarship and he'd still have to pay a lot of money, and it's $1.35 on top of that. So, but other than that, it's very similar with some nuances, changes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great segue into my next question, which is the Canadian recruiting. Obviously, you're further from the border, but
Yeah.
how different is it recruiting Canadians? I don't know how much you've tried at your time so far at William and Mary, but you mentioned the dollar alone has got to be
hmm
an obstacle. What are some of the obstacles now that you're at William and Mary to recruiting Canadians?
I don't want to say we're in a little bit of Canadian purgatory because we have Canadians, but the purgatory would be you just need to be able to educate the right type of kid because the kid we're looking for has got to be extremely talented, right? So that's easy then with giving him scholarship money, right? Because it's a no-brainer. But oftentimes those kids that are extremely talented like that are going to, you know, Utah or Kentucky or, they're going to just that step up. And then the next group of guys are still really talented. Those are the guys we got at Niagara. And the way I explained it to that is like if you know, they'll take a guy like Reese Kozar, for example, like we did everything we could financially for Reese at Niagara, and it made it real easy to say yes. And I could do a lot here and not even come close to what that situation was there. So um most Canadians there's gonna be an inflection point where the finances outweigh any other, Southern benefit or degree quality or anything like that. So it is a tougher spot. It doesn't mean it's impossible because obviously we Charlie here and we've had other Canadians over the years.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think the dollar's got to be. I think it was the lowest it's ever been a couple weeks ago compared to
Mhm.
the dollar. So that's got to be a huge challenge. So the state of the NCAA, whether it's NIL, the business aspect of, I know NIL doesn't necessarily impact baseball quite as much, the transfer portal. Is there any major changes that you would like to see made within the college baseball game to make it better?
I mean, there's so much in flux right now that it's hard to even know it's hard to even know what we're doing right now. So it's tough to answer that, right? Because what's best for 250 schools is not what's best for the other 50. And everyone wants to play college baseball. Like all the schools want to play, all the D1 schools want to keep playing D1 baseball. So I don't I don't see how much longer that's going to be sustainable. I do think that these recent rulings and things are going to significantly impact college baseball. I think the level of college baseball will get significantly better, which will take opportunities away from like me. Like for example, I would have never played college baseball if I grew up in this time because the lower level people are going to get pushed out because the amount of talent that's going to be, moving through the systems is going to be phenomenal. I predict that they're probably going to cut even more pro teams. Ideally, I think Major League Baseball wants players to develop in college first, like NFL, NBA situations. I do think, and I'll make waves here in this comment.
We love making waves, so make waves, please.
I I do think that there's no way of stopping the JUCO train that's coming down the tracks. I think judges and lawyers are black and white and they operate in that. And if you really think about it, like, because we grew up with, yeah, of course, JUCO uses eligibility. Why wouldn't it? You're playing baseball. But then you look at the other side of it and you're like, now that you can make money in in NCAA baseball, and you aren't allowed in this country to limit somebody's ability to make money, and the JUCO is not an NCAA organization, then why in the world would JUCO years count? Why would that count? Why wouldn't they be post grad or why wouldn't they be 13th grade or what? So I'm telling you, it is not beyond real reality that in a couple years, every kid will go through junior college 2 years before they go to the NCAA. And then when they go to the NCAA, they'll have 4 years or five or whatever. But those years aren't going to count very much longer.
What are your thoughts on that? Because now you're going to have 25, 26-year-olds potentially playing Division One baseball. And with the
Well,
COVID situation, you kind of saw the age get a little bit older. And
yeah.
so what's your opinion on all of that?
I mean, my opinion is I mean, who cares if they're 25 or 26? Like what I heard the comment I heard the comment the other day. It's like, well, shouldn't they just get a job? And I'm like, well, what if that is their job? What if
Yeah.
that is their job? Right? I mean, maybe baseball guys aren't going to be making a lot of money, but what if that is their job? And the funny thing is this isn't even like it's unprecedented, Matt. Like hockey does it. It's literally the hockey model. Like
Yeah.
every hockey kid goes to college from 20 to 24 after juniors are over. So
Yeah.
it's not like we're even reaching that far to get there. I don't know why it's like that in baseball, you
Yeah, I
know?
saw that comment too about why don't they just get a job? I'm like, come on, I would have loved to play an extra couple of years of college baseball. Let
Yeah,
alone if I was getting paid. So
right. And exactly. So I don't even really think about the age, because as coaches, we're just going to get the best players we can get. It doesn't matter who they are, where they come from, or whatever. But I do think, there'll still be kids that, there'll still be kids that want to play 4 years of college and not go to junior college, but it'll be few and far between because why wouldn't you, right? Like, and so then they're going to have to change something with that because that's going to mess up everyone's progress towards a degree. So then somebody's going to sue the NCAA over, well, why should my academic progress keep me from making money? Like I'm going to class, I'm in school. Who cares if I pass classes or not? So this is a thing that's heading down I mean, there's no end to it. Because then someone will say, well, because then the next thing is someone will say, well, I'm making money playing NCAA baseball or NCAA football. Why am I limited to 4 years? Why can't I play an unlimited number of years?
yeah, and then
Um,
that creates issues as far as professionals and
where does it stop? Where
yeah.
does it stop? As soon as you made the rule, as soon as you allowed them to start making money, where does it stop? So
It's
it's
business side of things that I think is going to trickle down. You saw it in football and then somewhat basketball already, I think, and now it's going to
yeah,
trickle to other sports, which is going to be interesting. I've had thoughts, but it's interesting to hear someone that's in the thick of it
yeah.
um, share their opinion on it.
Yeah, like one of the major, I'll give you the insight on the meeting. I'm sure you might have read Kendall Rogers' summary of the meeting, but the D1 meeting, but the nitty gritty was there was a lot of SEC, ACC Power Four coaches really scared about, the fallout of potentially mid-year transfers and how if we don't limit the roster sizes, then ultimately it's going to lead to enough unhappiness that somebody's going to get mad and sue, and they're going to be able to now mid-year transfers are going to decimate us all in the middle of the year. And I'm sitting there thinking that's going to happen anyway. We're the only sport in the NCAA that has that rule. And the fact that nobody's challenged that to this point is crazy to me. It's not gonna, and yeah, do I want it to happen? No, of course I don't want it to happen. But how the hell are we gonna stop it? We aren't stopping it, because it used to be like that. Remember, you used to be able to transfer mid-year and play right away. And if you think about it, and maybe I'm taking this too far, but if you think about it, if you tell a kid he's not good enough to play on your team and he needs to go somewhere else, why shouldn't he be able to go play right away? Why does he have to go a whole nother year of school just to play baseball? Right? Like that doesn't even make sense.
It goes back to the general perception of the kid leaving the program, not the program leaving the kid, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, more often than not, I could promise you that it's not the kid leaving the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting to go down, but I'm glad we did because that was some good insight. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the NCAA, needless to say. But Rob, we really appreciate your time today and best of luck this upcoming season.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really enjoy your guys' content, what you do for college, for Canadian baseball, because it's been really big. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great way to kick off our college coaches series here on the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. Great insight on all aspects of college baseball, Jackson.
I'd say so. Yeah, Rob, that was a really illuminating conversation with Rob. We really appreciate his time. He wasn't afraid to speak honestly with us, and that's always what we want in a guest, right? You hear about this NIL stuff going on. College sports is changing a lot, especially, in the context of football. That's been a very popular one. It's been talked about really in the sports world, but baseball, you see, and he talks about, antitrust stuff and things like that regarding, how you're going to limit someone from making money now. It's opens the door to a lot of interesting conversations.
Yeah, and you talk about, for young players, coaches, parents that are going through the recruiting process. You talk a little bit about junior college, roster sizes, his expectations as a coach. going from Niagara to William and Mary and kind of the different aspects of those two schools. So it's really nice to see you kind of got it all in one nice package here on the first show, I feel like.
Yeah, good way to kick off our college series, Matt.
And we'll be back next week with another great guest, Joey Hawkins. We've a former guest at that, and 2 players as special guests. So we're looking forward to that one. Until then, take care.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And the Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.